The fork hit China like a small alarm just as my secure phone buzzed a tone that never lied. Frosting and coffee steam curled over Dad's 70-candle cake. Cousins shouted for a speech. The living room smelled like buttercream and old books. I checked the screen. No caller ID, just a burn number I'd memorized in case the ground gave way. "Sam," Thomas said, voice stripped to wire. "Take our son and leave right now." Every muscle I owned answered before my mouth did. "What? Don't ask. Keys, go bag, south route, no lights, do not call anyone. Sam?" His breath clipped, a scuff of gravel, a door slam. "Trust no one, not even your father. I love you. Move." The line died so clean it burned. The phone felt heavier, as if the metal had remembered gravity. In the dining room, Dad, Colonel Jonathan Carter, lifted his glass, the silver of his old unit ring winking under yellow bulbs. "To family," he said, voice warm as oak. The flag folded in its triangle case glowed on the mantel, a quiet witness. I looked at our son. Lucas had frosting on his cheek and both hands in the air for more. "Lucas," I said, bright and wrong. "Adventure." He giggled the way 3-year-olds do when they don't yet know about instructions that taste like fear. I scooped him up. His small heat stitched me to purpose. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and winter coats. I slid open the hall closet, reached past hangers, and pulled the canvas go bag from behind the vacuum, where we'd agreed. Passport pouch, cash, burner, bandages. The locker key Thomas had mailed last spring, wrapped in green electrical tape. Behind me, a cousin shouted, "Speech!" Dad laughed, big and generous. He was all ceremony and soft edges tonight, tie loosened, pride set out for the whole family to admire. "Bathroom," I called, my voice 2 sizes too calm. "We'll be right back." The back door latch clicked under my thumb like a yes. Night air hit my face. Wet leaves, cold dirt, November breathing. The porch light threw a weak coin onto the steps. A moth battered itself dumb against the bulb. The driveway was a dark shape with a car attached. My hands found the fob before my eyes did. I strapped Lucas into his seat with a practiced kindness. "Seatbelt game," I whispered. "Click." "Click," he said, proud, a tiny percussion that sounded like defiance. I slid behind the wheel, started the engine, killed the headlights. The backyard fence made its old tired sound when we rolled past, tires gentle over gravel, the world suddenly made of outlines. In the rear view, a black SUV idled 2 houses down, gloss without plates, windows deep. It didn't belong to anyone I loved. "Eyes forward, Sam," I told myself, hearing Thomas's tone in my own mouth. "South route, no lights, trust no one." At the first stop sign, I touched the go bag, found the glove box blind. A flash drive slid under my fingers, black, unmarked, taped to the plastic. For Sam, in Thomas's tiny print on a strip of green. My throat closed. I cracked the tape and read the folded note around it in the light from a passing car. "If I can't reach you again, trust no one. Not even your father. Go to locker 17. Use the green key. Keep Lucas moving. Not even your father." The sentence hit like a cold room. Dad's laugh, thick with stories, full of honor, carried from memory into the front seat and broke against the dashboard. For a second, my hands wanted to shake. They didn't. A mile down, the night lit itself. A low, muffled whomp rolled through my windshield. The horizon bloomed orange behind us. Glass found its voice a beat later. I saw it in the mirror, flame licking the Carter roofline as if a careless god had struck a match. The neighbors would say, "gas leak." The papers would say, "tragedy." My phone would stay dark because Thomas had already told it what to do. Lucas flinched, then stared, small mouth soft with confusion. "Fire," he said, not alarmed yet, just naming the world. "Far away," I said. "We're okay." I put one hand behind me and found his knee, solid and alive. My other hand stayed on the wheel. South route. No lights. At the edge of town, the highway opened like a favor. The road smelled like wet tar and something sharper underneath. Burnt insulation, my own fear turning chemical. Headlights swept my door. I let a semi pass, shield and cover, then dropped in behind its red-eyed tail like I'd trained to. The black SUV slid into the merged 2 cars back, predatory casual. I counted breaths, 4 in, 4 out, and felt the old discipline lock my bones in place. I'd been raised on dress right dress and do the hardest, honest thing first. I'd married into a world where signals mattered and doubt saved you. Tonight, those languages agreed. The flash drive was a cool little animal in my palm. The green-taped key was warm from my pocket. In the back seat, Lucas hummed a cake song under his breath, the kind of tune that doesn't know it's cologne for courage. I turned off at the service road without signaling, cut across 2 lanes, and let the semi hide me. The SUV overshot, then braked too late. In the mirror, its taillights argued with each other. Good, I said aloud to no one, and then to Thomas, to Dad, to the person I'd have to become by morning. We're moving. I pushed the burner phone alive with my thumb. It lit the car in pale aquarium light. One text from an unknown, Locker 17, Arlington East, 2 hours. No tails. The letters looked calm enough to be lies. I killed the screen and the SUV's shadow. The sky ahead was black and indifferent. The flag triangle in Dad's living room burned behind my eyes. Trust no one, Thomas had said, even him. The wheel hummed against my palms, honest as a vow. I drove south with our child breathing steady and my life bleeding backward in the mirror, and I did the thing he'd asked me to do first. I moved. I was raised in a house where the flag wasn't decoration. It was a schedule. Dawn meant halyard squeak, canvas whisper, Dad's boots on the porch like punctuation. Colonel Jonathan Carter believed in lists that kept people alive. Polished brass, folded corners, a bed tight enough to snap a quarter. The living room smelled like gun oil and lemon polish. The tick of the mantel clock kept our chores in formation. Discipline is kindness in advance, he'd say, tapping the face of his old field watch as if time obeyed him. Mom kept warmth in circulation. Stew steam, laundry heat, the hush of a hand on a fevered forehead. I learned to read a face the way Dad read a map and a room the way Mom read a pulse. We didn't talk about fear, we made plans that could hold it. At 17, I could pack a rucksack blind in under 2 minutes and align photos on a wall so straight the house would stand up a little taller. I met Thomas at a joint briefing that smelled like printer ink and damp wool. He stood with his back to a window he'd already measured and talked about patterns in a voice that never wasted breath. MI5 was a file folder you weren't allowed to open unless it opened you first. He arrived in my life like an underline. Quiet, precise, necessary. We married without confetti, 2 signatures, 2 witnesses, the flag in the clerk's office refusing to sag. He taught me his small, ruthless commandments. Never ignore the first true wrong note. When a call uses 1 syllable where 2 would soothe, move your feet. If you have to choose the harder truth before it rots. We stitched our lives with redundancy. Go bag behind the vacuum. Burner in the flour tin. Locker key wrapped in green tape. His mark in the glove box behind registration papers that smelled faintly of sun-baked plastic. Our son, Lucas, slept under a mobile of paper airplanes. Thomas would stand in the doorway and watch him breathe like a man memorizing a coastline at night. When the job put a shadow in his shoulders, he'd kneel to our boy's level and let the shadow leave by inches. Signals matter, he'd say later, palm warm on my back. And the mind lies when it wants comfort. Trust the thing that doesn't bargain. Dad approved of Thomas in the way career soldiers approve of other men who carry weight without commentary. They spoke in nouns, routes, orders, weather, 2 dialects of the same faith. After Dad retired, he traded the ritual of reveille for a consulting firm that smelled like fresh binders and new carpet. He put his name on a frosted glass door and his honor on stationery. Cal Whitaker, old friend, newer money, sent defense clients his way and slapped his back at every barbecue. Cal wore cologne that arrived before his handshake and left a kind of shine on any room that didn't ask too many questions. He's a rainmaker, Dad would say, half proud, half relieved. My job turned me into a librarian of ghosts, intelligence analyst by title, pattern keeper by temperament. The server's low hum blended with the hum of our refrigerator at home. Both machines took their orders without thinking. Data smelled like warm plastic and coffee gone bitter. At my desk, I taught myself to hear the single wrong chirp in a flock of normal. I kept a green notebook, hardcover, grid paper, because some truths need ink to stick. Thomas teased me for it and then bought me 2 more. Paper keeps secrets better, he said, tapping the spine twice with that old habit of his. Tap, tap. We built a life on rules that felt like kindness. Sunday pancakes, phone in a drawer, flag dusted on the 1st of the month. Photos lined the hallway. Dad in uniform with a jaw that could stop a car, Mom holding a cake with her apron on crooked our wedding day with a courthouse shadow pretending to be a veil. In one frame, Cal had an arm around Dad and a beer lifted high, the flash reflecting off his watch like a small sun. I straightened that picture more than the others without knowing why. When Thomas worked long, I worked longer. When he came home late, we ate at the counter, elbows touching, body heat, a language better than debriefs. He never read from classified pages at our table, but sometimes a scrape of gravel in his voice meant we were already living under a new forecast. If I say run, he told me once, eyes steady in the kitchen's yellow light, don't pack the pretty things. Take the boy, take the key. Don't call anyone until the first door closes behind you. Not even Dad, I'd asked, because some loyalties feel like oxygen. He didn't blink. Especially not the people we love. Love is how they get to you. I didn't like the sentence, but it learned a bed in my head and slept there. On good nights, we tucked Lucas in and pretended the flag on the mantle was just fabric and memory. On bad nights, we rehearsed without saying we were rehearsing. Headlamp batteries, fuel a quarter tank from full, cash folded to the size of faith. The black SUV in the neighborhood sometimes belonged to a neighbor's new contractor, and sometimes didn't. Either way, Thomas wrote the plate in my green notebook and underlined the numbers like a prayer. Dad's 70th crept up with banners and a rented tent that thunked in wind. He gave toasts that came out like parade routes, clean and proud. Cal slapped his back and told him he'd made honor look easy. The flag on the mantle kept its crease. The mantle clock ticked like an old friend. I laid out forks that had lived through 4 duty stations and 3 heavy storms. I didn't think about the locker key when I ironed Lucas's tiny shirt that morning. I thought about coffee and candles, and whether Dad would like the paperweight I'd chosen, a swirl of glass with a bubble trapped like a held breath. I didn't think about the flash drive taped behind the glove box plastic. I thought about who would take the group photo so Mom could be in it. Then the phone buzzed that tone, the one Thomas and I had never ignored. And a lesson we'd been living for years stood up inside my chest and asked to be taken seriously. Signals matter. The mind lies when it wants comfort. Trust the thing that doesn't bargain. I heard the front door hinge sing when another cousin came in with store flowers. I smelled buttercream and lemon polish, and a hint of cold air where the seal didn't quite hold. I looked at our green notebook on the bookshelf and at the photo of Dad and Cal, and at the triangle of flag on the mantle that had never once sagged. When the call ended, my feet were already moving. The street smelled like wet leaves and cold engine when my phone went dark in my palm. I buckled Lucas in, click, his small percussion, and slid the go bag onto the passenger floor. A moth hammered the porch bulb. The back door latch gave that soft metal sigh it always gave when the seal didn't quite hold. I reversed with headlights off. The mantle flag in the front window was a dark triangle in my mirror, a witness that couldn't talk. At the first corner, a black SUV idled 2 houses down, gloss without plates, windows deep. I felt Thomas's voice settle in my spine. Signals matter. I took the south route without signaling. Let a passing delivery van pull me along like cover. Lucas hummed the birthday song under his breath, frosting still sweet on his cheek. I cracked the glove box by touch. Tape rasped. A small plastic belly slid into my hand, flash drive wrapped in green tape, and a folded note around it with his block letters tight as wire. If I can't reach you again, trust no one. Not even your father. Locker 17, green key, keep moving. Not even your father. The words hit like stepping into a cold room. A memory stood up uninvited. Dad's hand heavy on my shoulder and a photo under the mantle flag. Cal Whitaker's grin slanting in from the edge, flash on his watch like a tiny sun. The hallway clock back home ticked in my head as if time could boss the truth. Mini-turn. The night tore itself open in my rear view. One low, muffled whomp, and then a sheet of orange picked out the Carter roofline. Windows exhaled glass. An upstairs curtain snapped like a flag-finding wind. Gas leak would be the story. Staged would be the file name. The SUV's brake lights flared red for a heartbeat, then went calm again, hungry. Lucas flinched, then named what he saw. Fire. Far away, I said. We're okay. My hand found his knee, warm and real. The car smelled like old Cheerios and my own adrenaline turning metallic. I tucked the flash drive under my thigh and pushed the green-taped locker key into my coat pocket where it could think like a heartbeat. Tap. I let the delivery van be a moving wall, slid onto the parkway, and killed interior lights. My burner phone glowed once. An aquarium blue rectangle in the dark. Locker 17, Arlington East. 2 hours, no tails. Calm text is a liar, timing isn't. I shut it off and watched the mirror until the SUV drifted into the merge 2 cars back, pretending patience. I counted 4 breaths in, 4 out, and reached for the green notebook wedged by the seat. Hard cover, grid paper, corners rounded by 1,000 plans. I wrote 3 words in the dark without lifting my pen. Gas leak staged. The ink bit the page bit back. Paper tells the truth slower and better. The service road appeared, a black seam under dull street lamps. I cut right without signaling, let the van block sightlines, then ducked behind a box truck idling at a loading dock. The SUV overcommitted, brake lights startled, nose dipping too far past the turn. It made the small mistake of people who think they own the night. Good, I breathed. My voice sounded like Thomas's when he'd crossed a river in winter and didn't complain. I put distance between us in a chain of unromantic moves, truck shadow, construction lane, a right on red that got me 3 useless blocks and 1 useful absence in the mirror. The city thinned to edge mall neon, and then to highway signs that think they're helpful. Lucas's song faded into sleep. His breath found the slow rhythm that used to steady Thomas when he stood in our doorway at 2 a.m., counting what he could keep. 10 miles out, rain began. Soft pins on the windshield. The wipers made their 2-note argument with the glass. I kept the speed civilian and the wheel steady. In my pocket, the green key tapped my thigh with each small curve. The mantle flag burned against the back of my eyes. Not even your father. Yerd. The sentence hurt the way truth hurts. Clean cut, no shred. I pulled under a sodium lamp in the outer lane of a shuttered strip center and cracked the go bag. The flashlight gave a tiny, obedient click. Its beam found my fingers and the zipper teeth in the pistol's cold logic. I checked the slide, set it deep in the bag, and kept my hand on the green notebook instead. Paper first, steel later. Mini turn. A sedan nosed slow along the far row and paused like a question. I stayed dark and let time be a wall. It moved on. I waited a full minute, listening to the soft tick of cooling engine and the far-off hiss of highway like a radio between stations. The car smelled like damp wool and my son's shampoo. I could have wept for 5 seconds. I didn't. I turned the burner back on long enough to send a single period to the number that had pinged me. It returned a single comma. Our old drill, moving, keep moving. I killed it again and put it face down under the mat. The SUV didn't reappear. But absence isn't innocence. It's a tactic. I pulled onto the road, took the long loop that dodges the obvious cameras, and watched my mirror like a responsible coward. The locker key felt heavier with every mile toward Arlington East. 2 hours, no tails. Trust no one. The phrases marched in my head like orders that didn't need a sergeant to enforce them. I gripped the wheel, the green notebook warm on my thigh, and let the last picture of my father's blue suit and easy laugh fold itself small. The compass for the night was a plastic key taped in green and a voice that had already saved my life twice. I drove into the kind of dark that asks if you mean it and answered the only way he'd trained me to. I kept moving. Arlington East storage sat between a tire yard and a diner that smelled like burnt coffee and old bacon. Sodium lights painted everything the color of cautions. Lucas slept, mouth open, breath small and even. I draped my jacket over him and clicked the child lock, tap, like a prayer that believed in hardware. The green-taped key warmed in my pocket with each step. Locker 17's roll-up door rasped like a throat clearing. Cold air and dust met me. Concrete, corrugated metal, a faint sweetness of cardboard glue. Thomas had packed the unit like a field kit. Pelican case, banker's boxes, a thin laptop wrapped in foil, and a shoebox taped in an X with green. My fingers shook once and then remembered themselves. I cut through the tape on the foil. The laptop woke without fanfare, air-gapped. Its screen a rectangle of obedient light. I slotted the flash drive. Directories bloomed. Carter Consult 961. Calder Maritima. Photos Survey. Ledger Offshore. I opened the ledger and met columns that tasted like metal. Wire dates, amounts, shell names growing like mold. Hampstead Strategic, Alexian Harbor, Whitaker Supply Partners, routing numbers hopping borders like they'd paid a toll to not be questioned. 2 columns were shaded green. Invoice origin, Carter Consulting, another in red, beneficiary, Cal Whitaker. Dad's name sat in headers he hadn't written. The pit under my breastbone went colder. Trust no one, not even your father. The instruction didn't feel like betrayal now. It felt like safety. Look past the name. Find the hand. I clicked Photos Serve. A carousel of night. Dad shaking hands with Whitaker outside the Norfolk Marina office. The flag on the pier purling in a low wind. A candid of Ben Sullivan, Dad's aide, carrying a leather folio into a hotel lobby with mirrored columns. Cal in profile talking to a man whose face was a good mask. In one frame, Dad's smile was thin, reluctant. Cal's watch flashed like a small sun. In another, Cal's gaze wasn't at Dad at all. It was at the camera. He knew cameras existed. He always had. The Pelican case's foam swallowed my hand like a thing with manners. My fingers found a green notebook, grid paper, edges dog-eared, Thomas's tight pen the same as the note from the glove box. I opened to a page where ink had dug too deep. Cal builds shells on Dad's name. Dad likely clean, leveraged. Arrows spidered to dates and code words. Chapel, witness safe, marina, proof of exchange, fort, custody. The shorthand was ours, but the weight was his, the kind that will crush you if you mistake it for gossip. Mini turn. A shadow moved across the unit's lip. Headlights glancing off metal, a vehicle nosing slow. I killed the laptop, slid it back into foil, pulled the door down to a 2-inch gap, and held breath like a sport. Tires whispered on wet pavement. The car idled 1 space over, then rolled away. My heart found my ribs and counted to 12. I slit the green-taped shoebox. Inside, a bundle of Sims. A key fob with Whitaker Marina stamped in cheap chrome. A chaplain's schedule for the Fort Myer Chapel with a date circled in pencil. A photo of Dad and Cal at the Rotary. Dad turned toward a flag in the corner. Cal turned toward money. Underneath, a flash drive twin to the one I'd already read, labeled in Thomas's hand. If found, Rachel Lewis. Beneath that, a narrower envelope with a child sticker sealing the flap, star-spangled. My fingers hesitated, then slid under. Inside, 3, 4, 6 prints. The first, a grainy over-the-shoulder of Cal paying a man across a table. Currency rubber-banded, fingers that didn't belong to defense. The second, Dad's aide, Ben, standing too still outside the chapel door, eyes sharp in a way that read cover. The third, a car's grille reflected in a window. Black, plateless, patient. The back of the prints bore times, locations, Thomas's block letters marching without drama. Deliver to internal RL, trust nobody else. The burner hummed once in my pocket, a gnat trapped in a jar. I cupped it in my palm beneath the door gap. The message glowed cyan. A single dash. Thomas, or whoever was running his pipeline, had switched punctuation. Dash meant eyes on you. I thumbed a single underscore, moving slow, and killed the phone again. Heat from the battery a sting in my hand. Lucas stirred when I opened the car door. The interior smelled like damp wool and sugar. "Mommy," he mumbled, half asleep. "I've got you," I said, tucking a blanket tighter, voice steadying because I made it. "We're going to a hotel with cartoons." The Arlington Hospital sign slid by 20 minutes later. I almost turned in, scanned the CTV bank for tails, borrowed the safety of white walls, but the flash drive in my pocket set its cold against my skin as if to say, do not bless them with your face until you must. I pushed past, watched the mirror. Nothing obvious. Absence wasn't innocence, it was a skill. I chose a motel that smelled like bleach and wet carpet and had numbers missing from its neon. A room on the second floor, far corner, line of sight to the stairwell. I rolled a dresser against the door and wedged a chair under the knob because rituals doing nothing still feel like doing something. Lucas blinked at the TV blue and then let cartoons pour camouflage over sleep. I cracked the laptop again, balanced it on a phone book, and read the ledger until the numbers stopped being numbers and became roots for guilt. There it was in an innocuous wire dated 3 weeks ago. Consult FE, J. Carter, ADV, 62,000, Alexian Harbor, Origi, Calder Maritime. And beneath, a second line the same hour, transfer, Whittaker Supply, $61,300, Benef, Ekern, Shell. The spread was Whittaker's skim. Dad's firm had been used as a pass-through. He wouldn't have seen the second line. He'd have seen a first-class lie with a flag on the invoice. Mini-turn. The motel phone rang once, no sound I'd authorized. I let it ring out. 30 seconds later, a text slid across the burner in the drawer without lighting it. Ben S. Dad's aide. Underpass, Yo 500, bring files, alone. Code, how's the flag? The sentence tried too hard to befriend. The code phrase tasted like home and trap in equal measure. I set the phone face down again and pulled the motel pad closer. How's the flag? Answer, it holds its crease. I wrote it in my green notebook and underlined it twice, as if ink could make the world honest. Lucas rolled and pressed a hand to my side. His fingers were damp with sleep. I thought about Dad's living room, the triangle of folded cloth that never sagged, the gas company men who would be filing reports by morning that used passive voice-like armor. I thought about Cal's watch catching light, about the marina key fob in my palm, about the chapel schedule circled in a pencil that looked like Thomas had pressed too hard and dented the page. I put the laptop away, slid the Pelican under the bed, and tucked the SIM bundle into my sock, where it scratched like an accusation. On the bedside table, I placed the Whittaker marina fob and the photo of Dad looking everywhere except at the money in front of him. The room hummed with ancient HVAC and the thin voice of a cartoon. Outside, tires whispered. Rain ticked the railing. At 04:41, I was already awake. Boots on, jacket zipped. Lucas lifted into my arms like the only cargo that mattered. The underpass 2 miles away smelled like wet concrete and exhaust. Light pooled yellow under the overpass like old tea. A figure waited. Hands open, no umbrella, hair damp. Ben Sullivan. He used Dad's posture the way decent men do when they want to look bigger than fear. How's the flag? He asked. It holds its crease, I said. He nodded once. Then let's move. He glanced past me at the street, jaw tight. You're not alone in this, Sam, but you are the one they won't expect. He reached for the Pelican handle. I didn't let go. His eyes flicked to my son, then to the green tape on the key dangling from my wrist, then back to the arterial road. He lowered his voice until the rain had to lean in to hear. Cal's using Jonathan's name as a mask, he said. He thinks you won't look because you love the man wearing it. I didn't blink. Where? Internal Affairs, he said. Agent Rachel Lewis. Chapel at Fort Myer, noon. Bring the notebook, bring the drive. Whittaker will try to intercept you by the marina first. Lucas stirred against my shoulder and sighed, warm and milky and impatient with adult secrets. I shifted him higher, felt his weight remind my spine what it was for. Okay, I said. The word was small and final and true as a key turning. Rain gathered itself into a steadier curtain. In the half-light, Ben looked like a decent man standing at a door the world had asked him not to see. The underpass hummed with the city's pulse. Above us, traffic carved lines we couldn't read yet. Move now, he said. Don't call anyone. I didn't. I moved. And the morning, such as it was, moved with me. The marina smelled like diesel and cold salt. Sodium lamps laid yellow puddles on wet planks. Halyards clinked like nervous teeth. I parked 2 blocks out, tucked the green notebook under my jacket, the flash drive flat against my ribs, and slipped the locker key into my fist until the tape bit skin. Lucas slept in the back, strapped, a blanket tucked to his chin. In and out, I told the part of me that had forgotten how to blink. I reached the gate, tapped the mesh, tap, and watched water take light and dull it. Footsteps. Ben Sullivan appeared from shadow, collar dark with rain. He kept his hands open, the way decent men do around frightened mothers. Rachel wants the originals, he said, voice low. Chapel, noon. We see the arrest through internal, today. Whitaker? I asked. Prime. He angled his chin toward the outer slips. He senses heat. What about my father? Leveraged, he said. Not rotten, but blind. A motor coughed alive down the row, an inboard clearing its throat. The Whitaker Marina fob in my pocket answered with a whisper of recognition I didn't want. Ben's eyes flicked left. That one. We moved. The dock flexed under our weight, boards slick, handrails gritty with salt. A 30-footer idled like it knew the next line. Cal Whitaker stood by the helm in a slicker that glowed oil slick under the lamp. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Sam, he called. Terrible night. Cut the theater, I said. He laughed. Small, mean. You're spooked. Understandable. You staged a gas leak, I said. His jaw clicked once. Accidents happen. Ben stepped half behind me, a notch closer to cover than loyalty. Cal's gaze cut to his shoes and back. You always were soft, Sullivan. You used Jonathan's name, Ben said steady. Cowards move. Cal's mouth twitched. Patriots move. Selling weapons data is treason, I said. He shrugged, rain tapping his hood like applause. Depends on buyer. I kept the notebook close. You laundered money through Dad's firm? Consulting, he said. He signed. He trusted you, I said. Cal's eyes warmed an inch. Everyone does. You will too. He took a step. The boat rocked. Diesel breathed. Two men rose from the cabin, dark coats, nothing polite in their hands. Walk away, Cal said. Give me the drive. No, I said. My voice surprised even me, flat, unshaking. We're done. He smiled with all his teeth. You're a mother. Think. I am, I said. That's why I'm here. Mini turn. A horn bleated from the channel. A patrol skiff nosed past, spotlight sliding across masts and faces and deciding we were nobody. The light moved on. Our night returned. Last chance, Cal said. Drive. Ben leaned close. Run to the chapel, he whispered. I'll slow him. You'll die, I said. Maybe not, he said. Move. Cal snapped his fingers. Take it. The two men stepped onto the dock, boards complaining. I pivoted, jammed the locker key between my knuckles, and slashed a hand sharp enough to make a wrist reconsider. A gun clattered, skidding under the cleat. Ben body-checked the second man into the piling. Water took him to the knees with a sound like a black laugh. Cal reached for the mooring line. I threw the notebook into the boat like bait and bolted. He swore, short, filthy, and leapt after it. Diesel rose as he lunged. The bow yawed. His slicker snagged on a cleat, bought me 3 seconds. I took all three, boots slapping wood, rain slapping everything. Sam! Ben shouted. Go! I ran, breath hot, lungs tasting metal. Behind me, feet gave chase. Ahead, the gate's latch gleamed. I vaulted the last bench, hit the gravel, and didn't look back. In the car, Lucas startled awake, eyes saucer big. Mom? We're running, I said. Seatbelt game. Click, he said, hands up. The sound was a tiny percussion that steadied the whole world. Headlights knifed the lot. Cal's men. I punched the ignition, tires grabbing wet asphalt, and shot through the exit just as a black sedan fishtailed into the entrance. Gravel pinged the undercarriage like coarse rain. I took the service road blind, turned left into a delivery alley that smelled like onions and bleach, then right through a chain-link gate missing a hinge. The sedan clipped a dumpster and hesitated. I didn't. 2 blocks of dark. 1 red light I didn't trust. 1 green I didn't believe in. The wipers beat time. Lucas counted them, calm as bedtime. At the first turn past the overpass, a shape stepped into my lane. Ben, soaked, breath ragged, eyes wide with the kind of luck that feels like penance. I stomped the brake. He yanked the back door, dove in, and slammed it. "Chapel," he gasped. "Franklin Gate, Rachel." "You got hit?" I asked. He pressed a hand to his side and grinned like a man who refuses drama. "Scraped. Pride more than blood." I shot onto the highway, swallowed by trucks, and the kind of darkness that eats names. Ben held up the green notebook I hadn't thrown. My copy, the one I'd kept flat against my ribs while tossing an empty. The flash drive burned cold in my pocket, as if to say, present. "You threw a decoy," he panted. "Good." "Thomas taught me," I said. "Smart bastard," he said. "He's bleeding for this." "He's alive?" My voice was too fast. "Last I heard," Ben said, "he bought you 10 minutes with an SUV and a bad bridge. Use them." We hit a stretch where the city fell away and the road smelled like rain and rubber. My phone buzzed once. Burner, drawer, blue light faint. A single dot appeared on the screen, then another, then a comma. Our old chain. Eyes on, go, keep going. I killed it and drove. Behind us, no headlights stayed honest. Ahead, the edge of Fort Myer rose like a darker dark. The chapel spire took shape against a sky that had decided not to help. I touched the flash drive and felt the plastic warm under my thumb. A cheap miracle. The locker key pressed crescents in my palm. The photo of my father and Cal burned in my mind until only one face stayed lit. "Sam," Ben said softer, as if to remind me my name wasn't gone. "You're almost there." "Almost," and I said. The word was a door I didn't trust yet. We took the ramp. The flag at the gate snapped once in the wet wind like a witness waking. Lucas's head found my shoulder, heavy and absolute. The sedan did not appear. Cal would pivot to lawyers and alibis. He'd call my father. He'd say I was hysterical and dangerous and wrong. I slid the car into shadow beside the wall, engine ticking down. My hands remembered how to be hands. I checked the drive, checked the notebook, checked the weight of my son. The chapel bell didn't ring. The hour didn't need a numeral to matter. "Move," Ben said, voice newly quiet. "Today is the day the lie stops collecting interest." We moved, and the night, stingy and soaked, let us through. The Fort Myer chapel smelled like damp stone and candle wax. Every footstep made a soft, hollow answer. Rain ticked the stained glass. The flag by the altar held its crease, colors deep in the gray light. I tucked the green notebook under my arm, the flash drive warm against my ribs, the photo of Dad with Cal a flat truth in my pocket. The locker key pressed half moons into my palm, metal reminding skin to stay awake. Agent Rachel Lewis waited in the front pew, slim folder, no perfume, hair pinned like a decision. Ben slid beside her, jacket dark with rain, breathing even. My father stood in the aisle, tie crooked, eyes searching my face for orders he would accept. Mom touched his sleeve and then let go. Lucas slept heavy on my shoulder, the sugar of his breath soft against my collar. "Ms. Reed," Rachel said, voice low as a psalm. "Do you have it?" "Yes." I set the notebook and drive on the rail. Ledgers, shell routes, marina access, chapel meet notes. The photo, too. I slid it across. Cal's watch threw false light even in this room. Dad looked from the photo to me. His jaw worked once. "Samantha," he said, almost a whisper. I didn't know. Ben answered for both of us. "You were used, sir. Your signature. Your name. He wore you like cover." The chapel door hinges sighed. Cal Whitaker walked in with a lawyer's smile and a soldier's swagger, slicker folded over his arm as if rain obeyed him. Two security officers posted at the back straightened. Their radios murmured like far thunder. Cal's gaze skipped the altar and settled on the table where government paper meets wood. "Church," he said lightly. "Fitting." Rachel didn't stand. "Mr. Whitaker," she said even. "You're early." "Am I?" He spread his hands, palms empty. "I heard there were misunderstandings." I handed Rachel the flash drive. "Start with Ledger Offshore S," I said. "Then Photos Survey. Date stamps match invoices. Beneficiaries match shells. My father's firm is a pass-through. He didn't see the skim." Cal smiled wider, the skin around his eyes not moving at all. Jonathan, he said, voice lowering into the good bourbon register, we should talk in private. Someone's frightened your daughter. Dad didn't look at him. He looked at the flag by the altar and then at me. No, he said, we'll talk here. Rachel slotted the drive into a small reader. The laptop's fan purred. The screen threw a cold square onto the hymnals. Cells filled with money and months. Cal's name repeated without boredom. The photo of him paying a man across a table clicked into place, grayscale like an old sin. He leaned once, feigning casual. Those are out of context. Context is for sermons, Rachel said. Rachel, this is chain of custody. She lifted a second sheet, Ben's sworn statement, then looked to the rear. Officer? Boots thudded once on old wood. The closer of the two security men, greens pressed, badge bright, stepped forward with cuffs that didn't clink. Cal's chin tilted, offense choosing a face. You don't have jurisdiction. We do today, Rachel said, already on her feet. Calvin Whitaker, you're under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, and illegal export of controlled data. The flag didn't move, my father's breath did. One hard swallow into a chest that had worn medals and now wore blame. Sam, he said, cracked, you really thought? I thought you were blind, not corrupt, I said, quiet. Both can kill people. Mini turn. The side door creaked. A figure filled the frame. Hood up, one arm bandaged to the elbow, the other braced on the pew as if the room pitched. Thomas. He smelled like wet wool and antiseptic. Rain in his hair, eyes bright with the kind of pain he never narrates. Signal held. He said to Rachel first, then to me. His voice was rough, threaded with gravel. Assets secure. Primary in custody? Primary in custody, Rachel confirmed, nodding toward Cal. Thomas's gaze crossed to Dad and didn't flinch. Colonel, he said steady. They used your name. They knew she'd be loyal to it. Dad's face folded, then set. I was proud, he said, and careless. Pride is a tool, Thomas answered. So is shame. They used both. Cal tried a last angle. Jonathan, for God's sake. Dad turned at that word like a man hearing blasphemy from a pulpit. Don't, he said. It was not loud. It was finished. Rachel recited rites, the officers moved, the cuffs met wrists with a soft, final click. Cal looked at me as if he'd find a smaller version he could bully. He didn't. They walked him down the aisle past the flag. His smile forgot itself. The chapel watched without applause. I shifted Lucas as Thomas reached us. Up close, his bandage smelled like iodine and storm. He lifted a hand. I put my forehead against his fingers for one breath that tasted like everything we hadn't said. You told me to run, I managed. You ran, he said. You kept him breathing. Dad stepped forward, the floor giving a tired creak under boots that had been retired and now remembered themselves. He looked at Thomas, then at me, then at Rachel. I taught creases and corners, he said. I forgot to check what was under the paper. He faced Rachel fully. I'll testify. Everything. Where I was blind, where he used me. He swallowed. I'm sorry. The apology didn't fix anything. It made repair possible. Ben, soaked to the spine, gave one of his small, stubborn nods. We seed the warrants for the shells, he said to Rachel. Marina next. Already spinning, she said, fingers quick on the keys. I looked at the green notebook on the rail, ink furrowed, pages smudged, the shape of the last 24 hours made visible. I slid it toward Rachel, then left my palm on it a second longer than necessary. Pay off, I said, for the record and for the room. You can lose comfort, but regain honor. Families are rebuilt by truth. Around us, the air changed. Not applause, not relief. Bodies straightened. Stand moved like a careful tide through the back rows. 2 officers, a chaplain who'd stayed quiet in the doorway, my mother, my father. No one clapped. We aligned. Thomas leaned his shoulder into mine and breathed through a wince. Chapel was a good choice, Amy said. Flags remember what we forget. They hold their crease, I said. We left Cal to the corridor and paper to the people who respect it. Outside, the rain had thinned to a skin on the air. The post flag snapped once and settled. The world smelled like wet stone and warm engine. I set Lucas in the car. He blinked awake, saw Thomas, and reached a hand, small, damp, absolute. Thomas took it with his good arm and closed his eyes as if the contact were morphine. Dad stood under the eave, tie limp, hair wet, older by a decade and lighter by a stone. He raised 2 fingers to his brow, a salute not for rank but for record. I returned it just once, not military perfect, only true. We had not won. We had told the truth where it counted and in public. The flag by the gate didn't demand more. It offered a direction. I turned the locker key in my fist until the crescents faded. The morning opened 1 inch. We stepped into it. Home smelled like rain drying on wood and coffee going kind. I set the green notebook on the kitchen table, smoothed its bent corner, and slid the flash drive into a plain envelope for Rachel's chain of custody courier. The house made small settling sounds. Refrigerator hum, a floorboard's quiet complaint, as if it were learning how to breathe again. Thomas slept on the couch with his bandaged arm propped on a pillow. He smelled like antiseptic and wet wool. Lucas lay sprawled on his chest, thumb planted, both of them riding the same slow tide. Every third breath, Thomas winced, then relaxed. I tucked a blanket higher and let my fingers rest on the blanket's edge until my own pulse stopped arguing with the day. Dad stood on the porch with the door cracked, cold air spilling in a narrow ribbon that carried the clean metallic scent of flag grommets and wet iron. He'd rehung the flag himself. New halyard, firm knot. It didn't ripple. It didn't need to. Mom leaned into him. Their silhouettes found a truce in the glass. The phone, my ordinary, not the burner, buzzed once on the table. A text from Rachel slid into view. Primary secured. Warrants executed. Your father cleared by morning. I exhaled. Paper would now say what we'd lived. That mattered. I took the photo of Dad and Cal from my pocket and held it under the lamp. Cal's watch flashed at no one. Dad's smile, in hindsight, was the wrong shape. I flipped the print and wrote the date, then 3 words, framed, then freed. I slid the picture into an envelope marked evidence, returned, and placed it on the outbox where the mail always cooled. Dad stepped inside, rain still winking on his hair. Your mother's making tea, he said, voice smaller but truer. You're cleared by morning, I said. The sentence felt like a key turning. He glanced at the notebook on the table, then at Thomas sleeping with our son, heavy as fact. His throat worked. I taught you to keep creases, he said. You taught me to look underneath. We'll keep both, I said. He nodded. I'll testify clean. The others, the Shells, the Marina. Rachel says I'm a fool, not a thief. He let the words touch air. I was proud, he added quiet. Blind is worse. Blind can heal, I said. Lying can't. We stood there with the clock clicking, soft, insistent, and the kettle beginning to mutter. The house smelled like steam and cedar, and a storm finished with its tantrum. Days folded. Paperwork replaced adrenaline. The front page carried a photo of a man with a slicker and no smile. The article smelled like ink and restraint. Dad gave a statement that owned what it needed and refused what it should. The consulting firm shuddered. The letterhead lived in a file where it couldn't hurt anyone. He started volunteering at the base clinic, teaching young officers what bad contracts look like and how pride gets weaponized if you let it. Thomas healed the way he always did, by doing. He began consulting for a veterans' mental health program, softening his voice for people who only trusted instructions. On Tuesdays, he spoke to families about signals, the real ones, the false alarms, the cost of ignoring both. He never said Whitaker's name. He never needed to. I returned to my classroom to teach ethical intelligence like you'd teach CPR, simple, repeatable moves that keep things alive until the professionals arrive. My students smelled like dry markers and ambition. We opened each session with a page from the green notebook rewritten in clean chalk. Truth is a system. Honor is a habit. On the first day, I took the locker key from a little shadow box and let it rest in my palm before I set it by the lectern. Tap. 2 rows sat up straighter without knowing why. Lucas learned a new word at daycare, flag, and used it for everything steadfast. The porch light, the old oak, the dog that never left the yard. On Sundays, he made me count the stitches in the hem while Thomas read him the weather like a story with a good ending. At dusk one evening, we stood on the porch together. The three of us, plus the dog and the kettle steam sneaking out the screen door. The air smelled like cut grass and dusk electricity. Dad walked the gravel drive with Mom, hands knit at his back, no longer the man who believed a name was proof. He stopped by the steps and set something beside my boot. His old paperweight from the office. Glass clear, a single bubble caught inside like a held breath. "For your desk," he said, "to hold down the page when the truth gets windy." I turned it in my hand. "It's heavy." "So is being right," he said, sadness and humor tied in the same knot. "I'm proud of you, Samantha. For the right reasons this time." We didn't hug. We let the porch lamp do its job and the crickets do theirs. The flag kept its crease. That night, with the house quiet and the notebook closed, I opened a new file on my laptop, Syllabus Trust and Risk, and typed the line I would give my students on day one and our son when he could carry it. Trust is earned with actions. Truth is worth the risk. Forgiveness keeps families alive. I slid the flash drive into a sealed evidence pouch and walked it to the door for tomorrow's courier run. On my way back, I tapped the locker key in its shadow box. Tap, tap, then laid my palm against the triangle of folded cloth on the mantel. The fabric was cool and coarse. The crease held. We'd lost comfort. We had regained honor. The cost was visible. So was the gain. In the quiet, with Thomas breathing evenly and Lucas burrowed under his arm, I said the last line out loud. Just for the house, just for the record. Peace is built from the ashes of fear. If you believe truth matters more than comfort and courage is what keeps families whole, subscribe for stories of survival, rebuilding, and the secret strength that families share when the world turns dangerous.